Lightroom offers different ways for us to filter our map markers and image thumbnails. One such method is the location filter menu located above our map. There's 4 options here. The first is visible on map. If you click this, it'll narrow the thumbnail gallery to only images that have visible GPS markers on the map. The second option is tagged. This will highlight thumbnails that are geotagged on the map. If you click untagged, this will highlight all the images in your thumbnail scroller that have no geotagging. The None option removes any filters that you've already applied. Another way we can filter images by geolocation is using the Saved Locations panel. Just scroll up over here on the left, and you should see a panel called Saved Locations. If you don't, right-click on your Collections panel and put a check mark next to Saved Locations. So let's do a quick example to show you how this works. Let's say we want to group the images on our map by east and west. First, we'll create our east location filter. Click the plus sign here, and we'll need to give this location a name, so we're going to call it east. Make sure to save this in the My Locations parent folder. Set a radius of 1200 to start. We can always adjust this later, so don't worry about it too much. The private checkbox will remove all GPS data when images are exported. This is a good idea if you share the images on social media. For example, if the photo was taken at your place of residence or another private location, you'd likely want the address kept private and you don't want GPS coordinates attached to the image. Since we're not concerned about that right now, I'm just going to go ahead and click Create. You can now see the radius for the east location. We're going to move this radius so it encompasses the eastern states. Since we're not creating a central radius, we'll include the Nebraska and Texas states within our eastern radius. So as you probably just noticed, if you want to move your radius, hold your left mouse button down on the center pin over here, and you can drag it around. If you want to contract or expand your radius, hold your left mouse button down on this pin, and you can make it bigger and smaller as you need. Once you've positioned and resized your radius, take a look in the Saved Locations panel. Lightroom has already filtered your markers and included any images located within this radius in the East folder. Since we have 12 markers inside this radius, we can see 12 images in the East location. Now let's go ahead and make a new location called West, and this will encompass the Western states. Now keep in mind that in practice you would likely use a much smaller radius. Perhaps do it by street, city, or individual state. But for now, this is just for the purpose of this lesson. We're using fairly large radiuses. So I'm going to call this radius West. And again, I'll just shrink the radius down this time before getting back into it. Make sure you save it in the My Locations folder and click Create. And I'm going to do the same thing again. I'm going to drag this pin, this time over to the Western states. And I'm not including Nebraska or Texas because we've already included those in the eastern ones. And by creating this radius, you can see that the West location set has populated with 4 images because it has 4 markers within that radius. Now, if you want to toggle between East and West, you can just click on each one in the Saved Locations panel. So say, for example, I wanted to make modifications to this, I could do so. Now hover your mouse over the West location and click this little arrow here. Once you do that, you'll notice that Lightroom narrows in on that specific radius. We can even use our saved locations to apply GPS coordinates to multiple images at once. Highlight a few images in your thumbnail browser that do not have GPS coordinates. So remember, you can tell if they do or don't by looking at the thumbnail, and if you see this icon, that tells you there is a GPS coordinate attached. So I'll go ahead and just select a few random ones. I'll select these 4 here. Okay, these do not have GPS coordinates. Now when you hover your mouse over any of the locations, so East or West, you'll notice an additional option here. There's a checkbox. Go ahead and click that checkbox, and right away, your images are added to the west location. And they get added to the center pin of that location, in case you're wondering why they were added in that specific spot. So there's our center pin right there with the markers directly on top of it. And once you've added these images to your map, you might want to permanently record these GPS coordinates inside the metadata of these images. So if that's the case, click the Sync Metadata button. Okay, so you can see the GPS coordinates are now inputted into the camera info area. And so I'm just going to go ahead and press the Synchronize button. And now this metadata is permanently attached to these images. Now, once you've finished working with the map, it's a good idea to lock your markers so you don't accidentally move them around. And you can do so by clicking this lock over here. So now the markers are locked and we can't shift them around. If you unlock it, you can move the markers around. Okay, so just hold your left mouse button down on the marker you want to move and drag it to a new location. So you can see using the map module is fairly simple, and it's a great way to keep track of the locations of your images. So let's head back to the library module and make sure you have all photographs selected. And in the next section of this course, we'll move on to the book module.